evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 2018 Buffalo Broadcasters Association Hall of Fame celebration. Tonight, we're honoring a distinguished class of broadcasters. Each has made their mark on our industry and helped Western New York become the great media market it is. Tonight's inductees include a man who started his career in Buffalo and went on to great success on a national level, Tom Lang Meyer. Longtime WTSS air personality, Roger Christian. One of the longest tenured program directors the Buffalo market has ever known, John Haeger. Broadcast pioneer and trailblazer at WNIA, the late Mary Lounsbury. Engineer and on-air personality, Tom Atkins. And a face familiar to television audiences in Buffalo, LA, and beyond, John Beard. Tonight's Masters of Ceremonies are Buffalo Broadcaster Hall of Famers Susan Hunt and Les Trent. And now, ladies and gentlemen, from the Channel 17 studios in downtown Buffalo, here's Susan Hunt and Les Trent.
Hi. Hello.
Hello.
Hi. You know it's really cool tonight? We have these wireless microphones so we can walk on stage.
Right. He just wants to show off what he's wearing tonight. So it wasn't much of a day-to-day in news today, was it? Okay, let's move right along. Hi, and we're so thrilled to be here tonight to host the 2018 induction into the Hall of Fame, Buffalo Broadcasters Hall of Fame. I'm sure there are a lot of very nervous people out there tonight ready to deliver speeches. I will remind you to keep them brief. That is coming from personal experience. We are honoring a number of innovative broadcasters tonight who've made an impact on Western New York, here and beyond.
In the constantly changing world of broadcasting, our 2018 Hall of Fame inductees remain dedicated to ensuring the continued success of our industry. Each boasts an impressive career, and tonight you'll hear inspiring stories of their time in the business. You'll hear more about the changes they've seen, you'll learn how they met the challenges presented to them, and you'll share in some of their fondest broadcasting memories.
So we're going to begin tonight momentarily, but first we want to bring up the president of the Buffalo Broadcasters Association, the one and only Steve Reska, to give our annual President's Report.
Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. This is our annual soiree, and we just want to thank everybody for being here tonight. Want to congratulate every one of the inductees. You've done a tremendous job in your career, and this is the pinnacle, and we just give you a tremendous number of accolades. We also want to thank our MCs, Susan Hunt and Les Trent, and I have to tell you, when you talk to former Buffalo broadcasters, there is a love for this town. Last year, after last year's Hall of Fame, it was about a month later, I called Les and said, Les, we want to know if you would have time to be one of the MCs for next year's, for 2018. It took him 2 seconds to say, you bet I'll be there, Steve. Then I called Susan, and I talked to Susan. I said, Susan, Les is going to do it. We'd love for you to do it. It took her 2 seconds to say, Steve, I'll be there. Because there were some things I didn't get to say when I was inducted a couple years ago. But seriously, we do have a lot of thanks for everybody with this organization. We are 100% volunteer. We have no paid staff. So everything you see here tonight, people donated their time to put up. People donated their equipment. So this is all for you broadcasters, and this is from people who donate everything. First, I want to thank our previous presidents. First, Al Anscombe, Don Angelo, Dave Gillen, and Heidi Raphael. Without foundation, we wouldn't be anywhere. And each and every one of those not only laid the foundation, but helped us build to a much higher level where we are now. So thank you to each and every one of you. Also, I want to say thank you to our incredible board of directors. Again, all volunteers. They each donated their creativity. Katie Morse wrote the script. And now you're going to say, well, sure, Katie's a great writer. She can do that. Katie's getting married on Saturday. Ever talk to a bride-to-be about getting a script done? But she did it, and we thank her very much, and we just send our warmest regards to her and her husband-to-be for Saturday. Of course, Herb Fleming, Steve Monaco, who actually the stage design and everything is his brainchild. Also, Jim Safe, who's directing tonight, Terry Fisher, Greg Garrick, Jim Pastrick, Anne-Marie Franzak, a number of other folks. We thank you for actually helping us get this where it is today. Now, concerning what happened with the organization since we last talked, our most important item is that we've moved our archives. We've used to be at the Family Help Center on Dingeon Street. And they decided that they really needed the space, and they very kindly gave us almost a year to move our materials out. So as you can see, we moved it to a new facility at 485 Cayuga Road in Cheektowaga. It's at the airport. The NFTA is our landlord, and the key is landlord, because now we have to pay for our space. So when we come and knock on your door for more money, it's just because we got to pay for rent. And just be hopeful that it's one of us asking. Otherwise, if we have to send Herb Fleming, well, you're on your own. We've got about 2,200 square feet. We've had to actually pare down some of our collection, but we've got everything wedged in there nicely. It's a climate-controlled situation, so the videos and the film we have are now safe. So we are also moving into the digitization of our library. We just received a grant from the Western New York Library Resources Council, and we're doing a test run on some videotape from 1978 from WIVB. It's being done actually as we speak, so hopefully we will have some digitized video from that collection within a couple weeks. So we'll be happy to share it with you when we have it. We also have a news from WKBW-TV. As you all know, we've had an agreement with WIVB-TV for many years to digitize their film and videotape. We worked out a copyright agreement. Well, this summer, thanks to Mike Nurse, and I'm not sure if Mike is here. I haven't seen him yet. Mike, if you're here, thank you very much for shepherding this through. We now have an agreement with WKBW-TV to digitize their film and videotape collection. So we'll be moving on, and I see Jim right there at Channel 2, and Jim saying, I'm going to be on vacation, Steve, so don't call me right now. But no, Jim will be talking. Hopefully we'll be able to work something out with Tegna. We do have a number of other new programs that we've done. We are continuing our student mentoring program and our peer-to-peer. You'll hear more about that later. We also created our first job fair, where we brought students from Erie, Pennsylvania, Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, all into Buffalo to interview very briefly with all of the TV stations and most of the radio stations here and a couple of the stations from Rochester. We will be doing that again in November. It was a great success. Everybody came away saying that they thought they had some real good candidates. So we're looking forward to helping out with that. As always, if you're not a member of the Buffalo Broadcasters Organization, please join. It's real easy. Go online. We'll take your credit card online. We've got a number of very important events that we do every year. A lot of them are free to our members. We do charge for non-members. So if you look at it, you're actually going to be saving money over the long run. We have a number of great events. Finally, and this is something that we've created tonight. So please, there's one person in our organization. He prefers absolutely to stay in the background. He does not want to be up front. But tonight, we're going to make him front and center. Without him, none of us would be here. You see, the Buffalo Broadcasters Association is honored to create an award for volunteers dedicated to keeping the history of broadcasting in Western New York alive. And for more on that, please watch.
Hello, all. Well, it's a privilege to talk to you about Herb Fleming. I've known him for 40 years. Early on, he spent years in radio at WEBR, then many years as head of the ad department at Tops Markets. It was a very special day on November 30th, 1995, when Herb set up that very first meeting. Attending was a group of Buffalo radio legends, icons like Jack Sharp, Al Wallach, Al Anscombe, Steve Mitchell, Dan McBride, along with Herb and myself. Al Anscombe, the father of broadcasting in Buffalo. He told stories to that group about working in radio in the 1920s. A few more meetings and the need was obvious. With the help then of the Broadcasters Foundation in New York and our attorney John Robshaw, the BBA was born. Herb Fleming volunteered and became our very first treasurer. Here we are, 23 years later, and Herb is still on the job, always there, never missed a meeting or an event. Kind and courteous, always at work and ready to help. Herb Fleming is the conscience of the BBA. He knows more about the history of broadcasting in Buffalo than anyone in this room. Herb is a broadcaster, historian, supreme professional, the consummate gentleman, and my friend. Here's to Herb. Thank you for your dedication and your service. You're the best.
So for the 10 years that I ran the organization, Herb was like my right arm. I couldn't have run the organization without him. And we were like joined at the hip. He always thought about all the things that I didn't think about, was always making sure that the organization was compliant with everything. And talk about a dedicated volunteer. I mean, here's a guy who not only was there from the very beginning of the organization, but to this day still is involved in keeping our organization running and working together. He's also very involved with me in the Buffalo Hall of Fame experience, and he helps out an awful lot with that organization as well. And I couldn't run the Broadcasters Association without him, no doubt about that. Congratulations, Herb, on this great honor, the Herb Fleming Volunteerism Award. Your name is attached to it as well as it should be, and it'll be remembered for many, many years to come by many, many people, and you're a great example for volunteers across a lot of organizations. So congratulations.
Herb is the consigliere of the Buffalo Broadcasters Association. He's the go-to guy when you need it done and you need the voice of reason to make it happen and dot the I's and cross the T's. Herb's the go-to guy. He is by far the unsung hero of this organization. And it is such a privilege to call him my friend, and I'm honored to have worked with him during my tenure.
Herb Fleming is the glue that keeps the Buffalo Broadcasters Association together. He has since day one. Presidents, we come and go. We come in with these great ideas. Herb will stand back and he'll think, maybe we should rethink that idea. But if we have an idea that he thinks can work, he's the guy who actually makes it work. He gets into the details and it works. None of this would have been possible without Herb Fleming. So we can't think of anybody better to honor with the first Herb Fleming Award for volunteerism than the man himself. Herb Fleming, congratulations from all of us at the Buffalo Broadcasters Association.
Gentlemen, please give a standing ovation to the man who makes this organization run, Herb Fleming.
The phrase, unaccustomed as I am to public speaking, probably has never had a truer person behind that phrase, but I just want to say thank you very much. It's a little humbling to stand here in front of a room full of professionals in the broadcast field. It's not a fun field anymore. It's just plain hard work, but I think we all share a common bond that there's nothing better that I want to do when I get up in the morning. And I certainly enjoy helping this organization continue forward in its mission to salvage the moving image history of Western New York with the miles and miles and miles of film that we're trying to be stewards of. So thank you very, very much.
So deserving, buddy.
Wow, congratulations.
I love Herb. I just do. Congratulations. As you know, the broadcasting world is tightly tied to the communities that we serve. And that's why every year the Buffalo Broadcasters Association creates a public service announcement for an organization that does immeasurable good in Western New York.
We call the initiative BBA Cares, and this year board members Jim Safe and Pat Feld. I was going to mess it up.
Good old Pat.
Feldball. That's
Feldball.
Feldball. It's not even that difficult. Created a public service announcement for Essential Care for Children, a group that provides hospice-like care for local children with life-limiting diseases. Allow us to introduce you to the work they do.
Giving hope, not giving up. That's the mission of Essential Care for Children. We provide home-based care to children with life-limiting illness. Our professional staff provides resources for medical and social support and enhances quality of life through music, massage, and art therapies.
A mom of one of my patients used to cry at appointments. Since she joined Essential Care, I don't recall the last time she cried.
Visit essential-care.org.
I just want to say something on a personal note, and I don't know how many of you people have ever seen this little boy, but he's been on the news locally quite a bit. He's 12 years old, and his name is Andrew Massey. Does anybody here recognize that name? No? Years ago, I was asked to come and play 100 holes of golf, and it was for Carly's Club for Roswell Park. And this little boy was fighting brain cancer, and he showed up at the golf course, and I have to say, he probably was this big, and his bag was this big. And he showed up at hole 77, and I never forgot, he just totally won me over, and I think he's won over so many people in Western New York that know about his battle. Very courageous young man, and right now, he's being treated at home with hospice in the last stages of his life. So I would only ask you all to understand how important this is, and maybe say a little prayer for Andrew and his family. Thanks. All right, sponsors. We can't live with them, and we can't live without them. But without them, tonight would not be possible. So please join us in thanking a number of people. Russell Salvatore. Are you in the audience, Russ? Where are you? I could have sworn he was here.
I thought I saw him too. I know I saw him on the screen.
Thank you, Russell. Russell Steaks, Chops, and More.
The Chicago Blackhawks.
Really?
Thanks to Tom Lang Meyer.
Yeah, thanks to Tom. Joe Romanowski from Indigo, who provided the video wall.
Ilio DePaulos.
All Seasons Rental.
Kevin Lavola from Spiel the Wine.
Spiel the Wine.
Spiel the Wine.
Right on. Well done, Kevin. Platters Chocolates, and all of our friends here and my family at WNED.
We also want to take a moment to thank each and every one of you for coming out tonight, supporting not only our incredible inductees, but also the Buffalo Broadcasters Association. We'd like to also recognize our former board chairs who are here tonight, Dave Gillen and Don Angelo. Please stand.
Also, special thanks to those who come from out of town to support us, and we want to recognize a few other people in the audience tonight. When we call your name, please stand and give us a wave so that you can be recognized. First off, tonight's program director, Jim Safe, a BBA board member and owner of DGI Video, who shot and edited so many of the things that you will see tonight, and he is hard at work in the control room, and I'm sure he's looking for a thumbs up, so well done, Jim. And also our event chairman, Steve Monaco, and of course, the treasurer, whom we just recognized, Herb Fleming.
Terry Fisher, another BBA board member and owner of Full Circle Studios, who also produced several of the videos you'll see tonight and is busy doing still photos with his team tonight.
There you go. Pat Feldball, also a BBA board member and owner of Pat Feldball Productions, who produced some of the videos in tonight's program, as well as lending his voice to many others.
Leia DeCenso, who helped put, she said, if anyone says her name wrong, Leia, it's going to be a hell of a pay.
It's Princess Leia.
Princess Leia, who helped put together the ads for tonight's event. Dave Donovan, president of the New York State Broadcasters Association, and Niagara County Sheriff James Votour.
Also, Sean Shank, who is also here with his wife, Bree. He is the awards director for the New York Emmys. Sean is here representing the New York chapter of the National Television Academy. And also, a quick reminder to all of our television broadcasters, the deadline for the local Emmys is Friday, October 12th, so get your submissions in. And we also want to recognize
Heidi Ziemer with the Library Resources Council of Western New York. Where's Heidi? How Heidi? Heidi has been kind enough to help our organization during our archive project.
Congratulations. Thank you for everybody. Thank you. How many people in the audience actually came in from out of town tonight? Hands up. That is awesome. A round of applause for those people, really.
Yeah.
What do you say?
And I say, thank God Sandy Kozel is here. You know why? Because, Steve talked about asking me to do this, and I said yes right away. But then, months later, I totally forgot.
It's true.
You
totally forgot.
And I believe it was Sandy who said on Facebook, oh, excellent, you're going to be co-emceeing it with Susan. I said,
what?
No, I'm not.
It's so funny because you think, I have not seen you since the 80s.
You look exactly the same.
Oh, yeah, right.
Okay.
But I will tell you that because of Facebook, I feel like I've seen you every day. That's what's so amazing. And you look
People
great.
ask me if I ever work.
Do you want to get to some awards?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, take it away.
Our first award is the Buffalo Bob Smith Award, and that goes to one of my favorite Facebook friends, Tom Lang Meyer. Ask him about losing his car in the parking lot. We begin now with what many of you have been waiting for. It's the first of our inductees into this year's Hall of Fame class. Our first award for the evening is the Buffalo Bob Smith Award. Buffalo Bob Smith was an outstanding example of an individual who started his career here in Buffalo and went on to great fame on a national level. The Chicago Blackhawks are the presenting sponsor for tonight's honoree, who's I do work in television. But you know what I do?
But I'm behind the scenes.
If you ever saw me actually working, it's like this: 3, 2, 1, and it's Jiminy crickets. And
let me tell you
1,000
something.
takes.
Can I just tell you though about Tom, and then we'll get to it. I had to call Tom about, I think, 6 months ago. Tom, where are you? Where are you? You're over there. I called him and I said, I am traveling to Milwaukee, and I'm doing House Hunters, and I need some good restaurants. Can you send me some? And within minutes, I got a list this long, but they were all like Wiener Schnitzel and Bratwurst, and I'm like, no.
That's the Midwest.
Anyway, Tom visited the WBEN studios when he was 8 years old, and from that moment, he knew broadcasting was his calling. From his early years at WKBW, WBEN, and WIVB to his current position as Vice President of News, Talk, Sports for EW Scripps Radio Division, Tom has showed unwavering dedication to our industry. Board member Terry Fisher takes a look at Tom's career.
Tom Lang Meyer, a Buffalo native, has spent more than 40 years in the broadcasting industry in a career ranging from leading legendary stations in major markets to serving in significant corporate positions.
At an incredibly young age, he got into radio. He had the little radio in his bedroom. He used to spend hours tuning stations, identifying them, where they were, what kind of programming they had, and he was just, preteen.
During his time at Sweet Home High School in Amherst, he interned at WKBW Radio in engineering, and he worked at WBEN, WBEN-FM in programming. During his college years, he worked simultaneously at WGR, WJYE, WIVB, and WJJL. He also served as general manager of WSAJ AM/FM at his alma mater, Grove City College, at WEDA in Grove City, Pennsylvania, and at radio stations in Youngstown, Ohio.
Once upon a time, I was program director of WBEN Radio in Buffalo, New York. And I found this kid, and he wanted to get into radio. So I gave him an internship, unpaid. And I sent him out into the world to record people's reactions to things, and he was terrific. And so I rewarded him with a 12-hour non-speaking air shift. Later on, he became famous, and it was all my fault.
First time I met Tom, I was an intern at WGR, and he was incredibly nice to me for some strange reason. And he said, hey, I'd love you to be my intern, you know, help in the programming department. And I'm like, absolutely. You know, the one thing that Tom did for me was teach me discipline. His voice and his discipline still carry to me to this day, even, you know, segueing from radio to television and then eventually to streaming. Tom Lang Meyer, so sorry. Wait, I'm happy that you got inducted into the Hall of Fame, and I'm sorry I couldn't be there today, even though I'm at that table over there.
After college, he continued at WGR for several years, becoming the station's airborne traffic reporter, while also working in program management. Known as Captain Tom, Lang Meyer is remembered for an emergency landing on Buffalo's Delaware Park Golf Course in 1985. After that event, he obtained his pilot's license so he could fly the plane too. During his time at WGR in Buffalo, Lang Meyer also worked on the air on weekends at WTAE in Pittsburgh, sometimes flying himself between the two cities. In 1986, he left Buffalo for Syracuse, where he served as operations director of WSYR and WYYY for 6 years. Lang Meyer joined CBS in St. Louis in 1992 as program director of KMOX and was later promoted to vice president and general manager, maintaining the station's #1 status during his entire 13-year run. In 2005, Tom joined Tribune Company as vice president and general manager of the legendary WGN Radio in Chicago, a position he held for 8 years. His accomplishments included overseeing sales, setting a record in revenue achievement as Chicago's top billing station, and bringing the NHL Chicago Blackhawks to WGN.
I think Tom was born to be in radio. He's a radio junkie. He talks about the history of radio and the importance of radio and the impact that it's had on him. And he's a brilliant leader, and he's played a big role in helping the Blackhawks come back to relevance, because Tom had a very rich hockey background in Buffalo, and he knew that there was something there. He felt the vibration that the Blackhawks could come back with the help of WGN Radio and Tom Lang Meyer. So I would say that Tom Lang Meyer has played a huge role in the comeback of our franchise.
Tom's currently Vice President of News Talk Sports for EW Scripps Radio Division, and he serves as Vice President and General Manager of WTMJ AM and WKTI FM in Milwaukee.
He is someone who values the stories and the sharing of culture and handing that down, using that to create a community of people that he's with, whether it's family, friends, or staff.
The Buffalo Broadcasters Association is proud to induct Tom Lang Meyer into the Hall of Fame class of 2018.
Congratulations. Oh, hold on to that.
I'll hold it for you. Congratulations.
Thanks. You guys gonna give that to me later, huh? I wanted to hold it now. Tom Lang Meyer comes to stage. Thank you very much to the Buffalo Broadcasters. This is an unbelievable honor for me. You know, no matter where anybody's life takes them, there's really no greater feeling than to be honored in your hometown. The Buffalo Bob Smith Award is a very special award for somebody who grew up in Buffalo
I'm most grateful to be included among the broadcasters who actually had a much bigger impact here as part of the fabric of Western New York and Southern Ontario. I left here 32 years ago, but I remain connected to so many people in this room. Mentors, colleagues, friends, they all taught me something. They taught me the importance of great local broadcasting. Those lessons not only served as a basis for working with and for stations that truly serve their communities, but they still drive me to continue to evangelize for the future of localism in broadcasting, be it radio or television, and for dedicated community service through a greater range of platforms that we now have today. These are things that I could never have dreamed of as a kid sitting behind the board at WBEN. Growing up, the radio dial was in our house. It was just a magic doorway, as my dad said. It was, I was a weird kid. I was a different kind of kid. I loved and appreciated Clint Buellman on WBEN just as much as I smiled and listened to Danny Neverth, who's here in the room tonight, and laughed hysterically at Taylor Moore in the Land of Fire. So, but I could also, as a nerdy kid at Sweet Home, I could also be, kind of accepted by the cooler kids because I would listen to QFM 97 Rock. There's Tom Perry. You talk just like that. That's where I learned how to talk like that, from you. At night, when everybody else was asleep in our house, from my bedroom in Amherst, I was transported to New York City, and I could listen to WABC. Mitch, I listened to your station as a kid growing up, and I could be transported to Boston and listen to WBZ and hear my friend Patrick Welts, his New England accent. That's where I learned how to talk like that, like you from Boston. To Chicago and WGN and WLS, and hearing Jack Buck call baseball on KMOX in St. Louis, or Ernie Harwell doing the same thing for the Tigers at WJR in Detroit. And from just 60 miles north of us here in Buffalo, yet it was a world away, I would always listen to CFRB in Toronto because it delivered a little more sophisticated sound that reflected how Toronto seemed to me. And then I would slide the dial up to 1100 and I'd listen to Pete Franklin on 3W on 1100, locking into the ears of all the gritty sports fans, right? Like you, Sandy, right? You were a big fan, right? You see the Cavs and all that. So after I'd go through all of the dial, I'd kind of settle back in Buffalo, and before I'd finally fall asleep, I'd hear Stan Barron, doing his with his gravelly voice, doing the results of Buffalo Raceway, and the poetry of Shane on WGR or KB, and you'd hear an acrobatic save made by Roger Crozier, and it was called by Rick Jenneret or Ted Darling. Or Van Miller, actually remember we did basketball, calling a Randy Smith layup for the Buffalo Braves. I'd get an English lesson from John Otto, it was always there. And then I'd get some schooling in jazz, and that was from Jazz in the Nighttime on WEBR. So I listened to it all and I appreciated it all, and I still do. Weekends in Buffalo radio were really fascinating because it was either the baritone sounds of Dan Lesniak, here's the Polka Kings on WADV. I'd slide over to the AM side and I'd hear the sound of a preacher on WUFO from the AME Baptist Church, backed by a Hammond B3 organ and an amazing gospel group in the background. It was magic to me. Buffalo was a clinic in local broadcasting like no other. I was also blessed to have great parents who supported my to-a-fault obsession with radio, and this was while my multiplication and algebra skills weren't so great and needed some help. My mother, who was a teacher at City Honor School, would kind of help me out. And I also, my mother, by the way, passed away in May, so this is also very special for my dad and my sister Kit and me for that. My dad, Hank, is here, and my family framed a great perspective through travel, manner, and making depth a priority. And what a place Buffalo was to grow up, to be able to do just that. And Buffalo is a place, as you know, and maybe don't even appreciate as much as those of us who moved elsewhere. What a place of culture, what a place of history. so many places and things, So broadcasters were very lucky here. We had great universities here, museums, a bustling waterfront, the Great Lakes, and the ever-changing multicultural landscape that we have here in Western New York. In high school and college, I was lucky to straddle 2 generations of broadcasters, from true pioneer broadcasters all the way to those that were getting to work with me that were my contemporaries at the time, Tom Calderon and John Rosso and Nick Rosanov and others who were doing really cool things at WBNY. And all of that connection and all that appreciation provided continuity and a really, really valuable roadmap. There were kind people along the way. Tom Joles was our neighbor, and he took me to see WKBW radio and TV, another Hall of Famer. So I learned from a lot of people that gave me a chance. Larry Levitt, you heard from Bob Wood, who put me on the radio as a 17-year-old kid at WBEN. And I learned a lot about radio news from Tom Darrow, who's here tonight, at WJJL in Niagara Falls, as he set me loose to cover the Love Canal saga. Joe Chili, you added a touch of smoothness to my work, working for you at WJYE. Jerry Rio, Dave Mason, and the late Larry Anderson, the late Dick Aaron, and Don Dusias gave me a chance to do everything at WGR, from being a personality to handling programming duties to being an airborne traffic reporter and ultimately getting my pilot's license. So I work with many great people who were dear to me, and some that we lost too soon. Mike Rosman was a terrific mentor, and there isn't a day that goes by that I don't miss Joe Galuski. And I'm very pleased that Nancy and Jesse Galuski Knights are here tonight to help celebrate. So it's exciting to be in a room full of radio and TV heroes, and to honor to have close friends from places I work with everywhere I've worked. They're here from Grove City College, Niagara Falls, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Syracuse, New York City, St. Louis, Chicago, and Milwaukee. My friends from Milwaukee are here too. So thank you so much for being here and coming to Buffalo. I'm so proud to show it to you, and I did give you guys a detailed list of places that you need to go that maybe we'll go tonight after this. So true broadcasters need to have a balanced and rich life with special people. Great hockey teammates are here from the St. Louis Stingers that I played with, and people who know me very well, yet they still like me. Friends and family have come here from as far away as California to make the trip. So to my family, my wife Mary, and daughter Megan, son John, and my sister Kit, thank you so much for your help and your appreciation for a career that took us to many wonderful places. It's great to see local broadcasting thrive here in Buffalo. Uniquely Buffalo broadcasters, whether it's Carl Russo, it's Shred and Reagan, it's the WEC team that is bringing our favorite radio personalities back, and many others who make local radio in Buffalo terrific. Buffalo is a great local media town, and I'm blessed to have learned and worked with the very best here in Western New York. And congratulations to John Beard, Roger Christian, Tom Atkins, and John Haeger, and warm thoughts for the late Mary Lounsbury on being inducted into the Broadcasters Hall of Fame. She sent me a very, very nice rejection letter. I still couldn't work at WNIA, I can't work at WEC, one of these days. But thank you so much for this terrific honor. I am just blown away by it, and I hope you all have a great night, and congratulations to everyone else.
Woo! Now put your hands on it. I'll bring it down to you later. How's that? Congratulations.
Well deserved.
Got it? Well done, Tom.
Yeah, well
done.
deserved.
Woo!
Okay, but that was almost as long as your first air shift.
Yeah, right? It's funny, I was talking to Sandy Kozel last week, and she shared with me a story that I have to share with you. Apparently when Tom was running, when he was Captain Tom, and he was up in the helicopter doing reports on traffic, he decided to take Sandy up with him, and she got really sick. Now, hold me to this, make sure I've got it right. So, I mean, really sick. So he took her back down, and I guess they landed at Niagara Falls Air Base, at which point he didn't miss a beat. He just kept doing traffic. But he wasn't in the air. So I'm just curious who your program director was back then and if he knew that was what you were doing. Go for it.
You're fired.
Yeah, exactly.
Our next award is the Hall of Fame Radio Award. Our next recipient is a familiar voice to Western New York listeners. Since he was a teenager, Roger Christian has had a home on the airwaves. As a dedicated young disc jockey, he took to the time to learn all aspects of the business, went on to fulfill a number of leadership roles, and became a mentor himself.
Roger's impressive career is one to be admired and honored, which is why we're here tonight. Again, our friends at Full Circle Studios take us through Roger's radio journey.
It's rare that anyone stays in one job for over 40 years, and it's even rarer for that to occur in the radio industry. Roger Christian has done just that in Buffalo and on the air.
It's funny, I was working in Ocean City, Maryland, and I was a music director there, and Roger was a program director here in Buffalo, and it was the 1980s, and I saw Buffalo, his station Rock 102 was playing a certain song, and I wanted to get his opinion on why he was playing the song. And so I called him up, and to my surprise, Roger actually was talking to me on the phone. I don't know what I said to him, because the rest was, I'm talking to Roger Christian. And that's the way you feel when you're around Roger.
Roger Christian began his radio career as a teen DJ on WYSL-FM, located in the Statler Hilton Hotel in 1964. He went on to attend Franklin College in Indiana, where he was the station manager at WFCI-FM, the college radio station.
Anybody who's listened to, worked with Roger Christian, feels like they've known him forever. That's just the feeling you get when you're around him.
Roger came back to Buffalo in 1970 as the overnight jock at WYSL. In 1973, he joined a new startup top 40 station, WGRQ, where Roger was a DJ and the station's music director until 1976. He then joined WBEN, WBEN-FM, Rock 102 as music director, and later became program director and morning man in 1984.
In the beginning, it was a little bit easier to move around from city to city. There were a lot more owners, almost like the way baseball or sports is today. But when you get to know a city as well as Roger does, and it was his hometown, I'm pretty sure it was just natural that he and the listeners fell in love with each other, and here we are in the Hall of Fame today.
In 1987, the station changed call letters to WMJQ, Magic 102, then Q102. Roger became music director shortly after and was the station's midday host. The station flipped to WTSS Star 102.5 in January 2000, and Roger continued as the midday jock, a position he still holds today, 41 years and some 7 companies later.
If there's anything that could have been, can be done in Buffalo radio, chances are Roger's done it. From being at the old record theater and seeing Bruce Springsteen, just look through albums before Bruce did one of his performances. Back before he was really Bruce Springsteen, Roger was there.
Sue O'Neill, operations manager at Star 102.5, has stated that his longevity is a testament to Roger's talent and ability to change and stay relevant with the times, and also demonstrates his love and commitment to the city of Buffalo.
Broadcasting is kind of filled with a lot of cranky people who kind of live on the edge. Roger's always like that calming, not regular, slightly abnormal, but he's the even keel in it all. And I think that comes across on the air, and that's why his listeners love him.
Roger has said that Buffalo will always be his home, and that the nicest people in the world live here.
Roger is the great American radio comfort food. No matter what's going on, no matter what mood you're in, you listen to him and you feel better. It's like some people have chips at night in front of a movie while you're at work. Roger Christian is like your potato chip at work, makes you feel better. Roger, we've worked together for far too long. Some days we look at each other and say, why are we doing this? But we keep doing it and we love you for it.
The Buffalo Broadcasters Association is proud to induct Roger Christian into the Hall of Fame class of 2018.
Rob Lucas, you must have got my check, and it came from Scotiabank. That's why it took so long to clear. Thank you, everyone. I want to apologize for taking you away from Big Bang Theory and the Minnesota Vikings and the Rams tonight, but it's an extreme pleasure for me to be here with you and all my friends and all my coworkers. And again, I couldn't thank you enough. And of course, Sheriff O'Toole and the Undersheriff and the Chief Deputy are here. So they said I can speed through Niagara County only one time, and then I should be okay after that. But I want to share this award going way back with my friend Ben Freedman, who passed a few years ago, who many of you may know as the jingle guy around the country, and who moved to Dallas, Texas. We started out on Berryman Drive in Snyder, right next to Amherst Junior High School, even as it was being built at that time. We got a little 40 milliwatt transmitter, and with our turntables, we would play to people on the street till the FCC van came around with that big antenna on. Then we stopped real quick. But again, from there, it was just wonderful. We hooked up at WYSL-FM, which was on 103.3, and then in the 18th floor of the Statler, that was their studios after WBEN had moved to 2077 Elmwood Avenue. We would go down there a couple of times a week to do a radio show, and it was just nice. Then one of the inductees tonight, Mary Lounsbury, I had a tryout with her at WNIA. I was hired. I didn't know which name I would be, Jerry, Jack, Mike, Melody, but I had to forego that because I had just been accepted at Franklin College of Indiana. So I went there for a couple of years, came back to WYSL and joined with Michael Spears, who was the program director then. Hal Martin was his name on the air, and who went on to big things, programming stations like KFRC in San Francisco and many more. So we learned a lot from him and worked with Jerry Rio. I see you out there, Jerry. We had a good time, didn't we? Yeah, and people might even believe us even tonight as well. But thank you. And then again, moving to WGRQ in those days with J.J. Jordan, the program director. He had hired me over from WYSL to be the music director on the new startup, 96.9. And then from there to WBEN, I started out as a production assistant with Lee Zimmerman, who rested in peace, had a good time with that, and then moved over when Bob Wood came to be the only voice on Rock 102 at the time. We were big in Toronto. Even the Toronto people thought that we were a local station because the antenna on Colden on top of the Channel 4 antenna would go into Toronto better than it would come into Buffalo because the signal was so hot then. Still quite good now, but a few other stations are around us, so we don't do that well, but still do okay. And again, I just would like to thank all my friends, all my family. Table 16, my bosses are here. Thank you for putting up with my neuroses, and of course the sheriff and everything. And I would just like to say in closing, Chingu. That's Korean, it means friend. And Chris Collins says, that's the only word you can use. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.
Congratulations. Congrats, honey. Really great.
It is such a small business. He mentioned Lee Zimmerman. I worked with Lee Zimmerman. What people don't know about him, he was this amazing engineer, program director, and he programmed the sound of WBLK. Really? And so there's this crisp sound about it, and I'm sure it's still the same today. That was all part of his programming. And then he started, he didn't start it, but he did the programming for Woo Woo when I was there.
Oh, gosh.
107.7 WUWU.
I remember that.
And, you know, that's one of the things you learn when you work in Buffalo radio is how to say W. So they drill it into your head, W. So imagine what it's like working at WUWU.
That would never
on
happen.
the overnight shift.
Never happened.
Oh, yeah. So anyway, we do work in a business where it's all about being seen.
Okay.
And heard.
Right.
But we all know there's a lot of hardworking people behind the scenes who make everything that we do possible. The Al Anscombe Award is presented to a broadcaster who made a lasting impression in a management position.
And our next inductee is one of the longest lasting program directors this market has ever seen. This year, the Al Anscombe Award is being presented to John Haeger, who has been program director at 97 Rock for 30 years. I feel like Bruce should be here. Board member Jim Safe put together this tribute with a little help from John's friends.
As John Haeger grew up in East Aurora listening to KB, he always knew he wanted to work in radio. He graduated from East Aurora High School and Ashland University in Ohio. After graduating from Ashland with a degree in radio and television, John was hired as the program director and morning host at WCJW AM in Warsaw, also working weekends at the beautiful music format at WJYE FM in Buffalo. In the fall of 1981, while still at WCJW, John was hired by WPHD FM as an on-air weekend host and eventually moved to 97 Rock.
Since 1980, I believe, was the first time I met John Haeger working at 425 Franklin Street when Franklin Street was Radio Row. Remember that? In the little mansions down there?
A lot of people know John was a math major before he got into media, but he only can count to 500. That's why we still have the same 500 songs for these last 30 years.
I first met John when he was a weekend announcer at WPHD in the early 1980s. And I remember it didn't take too many listens to John to realize this guy had it. A couple of years after that, John and I became competitors. We were programming 2 different radio stations here in the market. And then a couple of years after that, John asked me to join his team on 97 Rock. His calm blue water approach to all the different personalities he has to juggle is truly a gift.
In 1983, he was promoted to full-time on-air personality at 97 Rock, first as an overnight talent and then an afternoon drive.
John Haeger, the only member of the Hall of Fame that still has an overnight shift. You must be very proud taking an intern's job.
After the station abruptly changed formats in January of 1985, John was hired as an on-air talent and research director at WCMF FM in Rochester. 1 year later, he accepted the program director and afternoon host positions at WPHD FM.
John has been the steward of rock and roll in Buffalo for over 30 years. Since the first time he put 97 Rock on the air on WPHD on April Fool's Day in 1988. And somehow that summer, Rich's decided to put 97 Rock back. He reassembled Norton, Russo, Tiberi, brought in Anita West, and some young concert promoter named Don Tomasulo to be sales manager. The rest is history. John, through Mercury, through Rich's, Mercury, Citadel, and Cumulus, he's kept 97 Rock at the top of the charts for 30 years. Same 500 songs, but still on top of the charts.
What John does is pretty much the benchmark for the rest of the country in terms of that format. And the fact that he's been able to survive the many different ownership changes and things that have gone on in our industry and still be there is absolutely a tribute to him.
Hey, congratulations, CPAP. That's John's nickname. We call him CPAP. You'll find out why during his acceptance speech.
97 Rock actually returned to the airways with great fanfare in September of 1988, and Haeger has served as its PD without interruption for the past 30 years. During that time, he's overseen the creation of many of the station's and Buffalo's iconic promotions.
I first met John in 1991 when Rich Communications threw us together with the first top 50 market LMA of the Fox and 97 Rock. And I quickly found out that John was a man of very few words, but very big actions. He knew his product cold. He had a passion for music that burned inside of him that most people wear on their sleeves, but John let come through the speakers of Western New York radios.
You may not know this, but John Haeger, huge Bruce Springsteen fan. I think he saw him 120 times, which is weird because that's the same number of times that we played REO Speedwagon last week.
Congratulations on your induction to the Hall of Fame. 30 years of being at the top of the charts. You totally deserved it. Congratulations.
John, I've said this to you face to face, but I'm happy to say it in front of our peers. You are now walking with the elite of Buffalo broadcasters as you should have been for many, many years. Congratulations, John.
The board asked me to say a couple of funny lines, but I had some great stuff written. I gave it all to Rob Liederman. So what I will say is congratulations to the class of 2018. In particular, congratulations to my boss, my friend, John Haeger. It's about time.
John, I couldn't be more proud. Seriously, you have employed me 28 years ago. and it's rare that we get to be able to acknowledge all of the hard work that you've done. I mean, you deal with such huge egos and people that just think about themselves all the time. And I just want to let you know, what the?
Congratulations, John. We've been through a lot together. Welcome home to the Hall of Fame.
The Buffalo Broadcasters Association is proud to induct John Haeger into the 2018 class of the Hall of Fame.
Get it behind!
I'm reliving my past.
All right. Donnie, it's not 500, it's 330. So thank you so much to the Buffalo Broadcasters Association for such a tremendous honor. This induction is so meaningful to me because of the Buffalo broadcasting community has such a rich history. Think of all the legendary broadcasters who have passed through or spent time or started their career or did their entire career here in Buffalo. That all made a real impact on me. I grew up in an era when entertainment choices were really limited compared to today. Basically, there was 3 TV stations and a dozen radio stations. But I always considered that time as a golden age of Buffalo broadcasting. It made such an impression on me that I wanted to make it my career. Joe Chili gave me my first on-air job as a weekend announcer out of college at WJYE. Now, yes, it was a beautiful music station, which was, you know, not the coolest kind of thing, but it was a Buffalo radio station, and I was on the air in Buffalo. And I remember when I first got there that there was this, I was so excited I was going to be the young guy at the station. Then there was this kid named Tom Lang Meyer, who was like 2 or 3 years younger, already working there. So kind of spoiled the joy there. That's what it was called, no pun intended. Harv Moore hired me for my first program director's job at WPHD, followed by David Rich, who in 1988 called me to bring back and program 97 Rock after a 3-year hiatus. The station had changed format under a previous ownership. They did some research and said 97 Rock should be back. So I was called back, and so ironic that literally it was 30 years ago this week that 97 Rock relaunched, and it's been, you know, on ever since, and we've never looked back. Now, during these last 30 years, I've had the honor of working with so many talented broadcasters, including a few who were instrumental in helping me look at my job a little differently. You know, when I first started, I wanted to be an air talent, but as I got involved with it, I realized I wanted to be the program director. I wanted to kind of help construct what was going on, and there were a few people who helped me look at the position as more of a strategic job, and some of those names include Charlie Banta, Bill Sauer, and Fred Jacobs. I've been fortunate to have some talented promotion directors over the years. Tina Chaudhry is here tonight. I'm happy to see her. It's a really important job for a station like 97 Rock, but over the last decade, Dave Dickster, who many of you know as Dave Jick or Dave DJ Dickster, has really taken that role and transformed it into new heights. So really hoping that he never gets married. And then there's our legendary air staff, which for the most part have been there for all 30 or very close to the 30 years. John Pacillo, JP the Professor, Slick Tom Tiberi, Rob Lederman, Rich the Bull Gensler, Chris Klein, Steve Trippi, Anita West, Jim McGee, and recent Hall of Fame inductees Carl Russo and Larry Norton. I like to call them the pants-dropping, house-rocking, booty-shaking, Viagra-taking, love-making 97 Rock boss jocks. And now a new chapter starts with the arrival this summer of our new market manager, Jim Riley. So I thank Jim for supporting tonight's event and getting a table with all our comrades. And then there's all the family and friends who've traveled from long distances. It really means a lot to me, and I appreciate that. Coming from Rochester and Syracuse. I know, Tom, it's not from all over the country, but I still, it's still very means a lot to me. And my family, our son John, who graduated from the College of William and Mary this May and is now living and working in D.C., our daughter Bridget, who turns 21 on Monday and is here tonight down from the University of Toronto, where she is a junior. Bridget was really excited to learn that John Beard was being inducted tonight as well. Now, full disclosure, she's never seen John Beard on Channel 2, but she has seen every episode of Arrested Development. So maybe we can get a picture later, John. Okay. And then, of course, my wife, Ellen Carroll. We're celebrating our 25th wedding anniversary in November. And she has really run the family and taken care of everything over the last 30 years, so I could really focus on my programming efforts at 97 Rock. Although she also had a career that was successful, so she's a little better at multitasking, but thank you. I love you. And in closing, I just want to say, I think despite all the changes in the broadcast industry that I've encountered over my career, it's still a fun and rewarding experience. And I thank the Buffalo Broadcasters Association for keeping that spirit alive in Western New York. Thank you.
There you go, John. Take it away.
You know, if you travel around the country, you know there are not many true rock stations left. I think New York has, I say, 3/4 of a station because it's not really a rock station like you guys, so that's amazing. We work in a business that's almost always, I already did that one, sorry, never mind. Our next award is the Broadcasters Memorial Award. It's given every year to a deceased Buffalo broadcaster whose contribution left a lasting impression on our industry. Tonight's honoree, Mary Lansbury, discovered and then broke through barriers for women in broadcasting.
She my girl. When Mary was first hired at WNIA in 1956, women were office managers, not station managers. In her career at WNIA, she proved that she had the right stuff to run the station and do outstanding work in the so-called man's world of the day. And she's just a real class act. Pat Feldball looks back at her life and her story.
Mary Lounsbury was a pioneer in Buffalo broadcasting. She was a trailblazer, a female general manager of a popular and distinctive radio station at a time when radio management was almost exclusively male. Competitors like WKBW dominated the airwaves with 50,000 watts. Most other stations in Buffalo were operating with 5,000 watts, and WNIA's daytime signal was a mere 500 watts. Nighttime, just half of that. Despite all that, and thanks to Mary's guidance and programming skills, WNIA attracted a significant audience and maintained a competitive ranking in the market. Born in Olean in 1927, Mary began her career with WNIA in Cheektowaga in 1956 at the age of 29. She was one of the first hired by owner Gordon P. Brown, and because it was unheard of to have a female general manager in radio, Mary's official title was office manager. Radio and TV veteran and Buffalo Broadcasting Hall of Famer Don Yerke happened to be at the station the day Mary Lounsbury applied for the job.
One day while I was working around the building doing wiring and stuff, there was a knock at the door, and opened the door, and there was an attractive young woman there. Lo and behold, it was Mary Lounsbury, who was looking for a job. We talked a bit. I got her name and her phone number, passed it along to Belle Reber, who was the Mr. Brown's assistant. They subsequently got together, and Mary was hired a couple of months before the station went on the air. Of course, she had the big job of setting the place up, hiring people, and she had help with it, but she was very involved with that. You know, as I think back, I realized that I got a chance to meet this lady first, who became a real significant part of Buffalo broadcasting. The number of people that she hired that became successful went on to other places, and As I say, I was first in line. I'm the only one that she didn't hire. I was hired by Mr. Brown. Everybody else was hired by Mary for many, many years.
Mary carefully supervised the programming of the station. She gained a national reputation as a manager who was willing to take a chance on a new artist or record. She was known as a tough businesswoman who guarded the license and format with resolve. An important part of Mary's legacy lies in the fact that she provided that all-important first job in radio for many aspiring area DJs. Many have treasured Mary stories about how she provided encouragement and constructive criticism.
I'm Jack Horoho, and although more than 50 years have passed since I first met Mary, I can still recall exactly what happened at our first meeting. I'd just been discharged from the Navy. I always had a burning desire to make radio my career. I stopped by the WNIA studios on Genesee Street and announced to the receptionist that, well, I wanted to speak to someone regarding a job. A few moments later, I was ushered into the office of this strikingly attractive 30-something woman with dark hair and eyes to match. And the 21-year-old me was both nervous and fascinated. The audition process was pretty straightforward, as I was told to read some copy into a reel-to-reel tape recorder. A few moments later, she asked, well, when can you start? Start? Wow, I must have really impressed her with my dulcet tones, or maybe it was my boyish smile. I quickly found out it was neither. The guy doing the Jerry Jack spot had just announced that he was leaving the station, and I was simply at the right place at the right time. So I became the new Jerry Jack. Running a radio station and keeping 4 or 5 young guys with raging hormones and huge egos in check was not an easy job. Mary's job title was never officially that of a station manager, but she was. She was also the music director, the program director, the bookkeeper. She did it all. Now tonight, more than a half century since we first met, I want to take this opportunity to salute Mary Lansbury, a pioneer in Buffalo radio. Thank you, Mary, for giving me and countless other people our first shot on the air, and giving this now senior citizen a lifetime of memories.
Mary stayed through the hit radio Mike Melody, Tommy Thomas years, through a format change to the new WNIA Oldies format, and finally to the advent of the urban disco Super Sound 12 format. With the passing of owner Gordon P. Brown in 1979, the station was sold to Quid Me Broadcasting, owned by Chet Musialowski, which reformatted and renamed the station WECK. Mary stayed on until 1980. Mary was just 66 when she passed away in 1994, but she was a trailblazer, the first female general manager of a popular and successful Buffalo radio station. It is with great pride that the Buffalo Broadcasters Association presents the 2018 Memorial Award to a true broadcast pioneer, Mary Lounsbury.
Accepting the award for Mary is Big Jim Davis and Dr. Jim Seward, Professor Emeritus at St. John Fisher College.
Let me put my radio voice on.
I'll do mine too.
Okay. Hey, I'm Mac McGuire, the live wire.
I'm Mac McGuire.
No, wait a second. I'm Mac McGuire, the live wire.
I'm Mac McGuire as well. I was Mac McGuire. When were you Mac McGuire?
Well, I was a 1961 Mac McGuire.
You old fart. I was Mac McGuire from about 1967 out to about 1970.
So just in case you think that you just tuned in to tell the truth, we're both Mac McGuires, the live wires.
This is it.
Details soon.
I'm Jim Seward.
I'm Jim Davis.
And we want to thank the Board of Directors and the members, excuse me, of the Buffalo Broadcasters Association for this opportunity to posthumously honor our friend, our boss, Mary Lounsbury. She was the person who ran the operations at WNIA for 35 consecutive years. Now, if you look around the room tonight, we have a great turnout. but I'll bet you that most people don't really know Mary's contribution. And so what we want to do tonight is give you a little history, starting with the fact that you don't have to go too far to find people whose careers were impacted by Mary. If you're an alumnus of WNIA or worked with Mary at WECK, stand up for just a second so we can acknowledge you and Mary's legacy. I know there are a couple of people here from NIA, WECK. Anybody? Let's see who's here. Got a bunch. Yes, we do. Table 22 is over there. Dennis is over there. That's terrific. Thank you, guys. Let's give them a hand. You know, there's a long, rich history of radio in Buffalo. But WNIA was, having worked there, right? It was a quirky little place. Those of you who worked there, you know. And to understand that, we need a little history lesson. And my history lesson is my friend, Jim Davis.
There you go. Gordon Padilla Brown. Now that's a handful. Gordon P. Brown was a young experimenter. At the age of just 14 years old, he built his first spark gap transmitter. And he also had a dream, and the dream was to one day own a commercial broadcast station. He went to the legislators time and time again. He was turned down. However, in 1936, the Federal Radio Commission, which was the predecessor to the Federal Communications Commission, awarded him a license for WSAY in Rochester. A few years later, on September the 7th of 1956, he was awarded the 250-watt license for WNIA in Cheektowaga. He built it in a ranch home at 2900 Genesee Street, where it still resides today as WECK. Now, Gordon was a very thrifty man, as some of you who worked for him know. He believed that he should have small staffs, and the staffs would work for 90 cents an hour and all the records you could steal. That was my story. It worked for me. He was also a fellow who believed that sales would come to him through ratings. Probably not a bad idea, but occasionally he would hire a sales manager, and that person would work on commission only. He thought if the ratings were good, people would call in, they'd buy commercials, and indeed, every once in a while they did. Gordon was a religious man, and because of that, he insisted that twice every day that the radio station would play the Catholic Angelus prayer and the Rosary. Now, I have to tell you, one of the toughest segues in the world is to go from the Angelus prayer to the trash men and surfing bird. Everybody's heard about the bird. He also believed that, that because the turnover would be relatively high, that it would probably be beneficial to him to keep the same names of the disc jockeys throughout the year. So for 30 years, no matter who sat behind the mic, if you did the morning show, you were Tommy Thomas, the timekeeper. If you did the afternoon show, you were Jerry Jack. If you did nights, you did Mike Melody's Melody Corner. And if you did weekends, you became a Mac McGuire. And so Jim and I are both Mac McGuires. James?
Well, you know, the question's got to be, how did Mary wind up running a radio station, a top 40 rocker, of all things, in Cheektowaga, New York, of all places, right? Well, Don Yerke told us the story. Mary knocks on the door and eventually meets Mr. Brown. And Mr. Brown, being a man of his generation, decides that her position would be the office manager. Now, it's 1956. And the concept of a woman being in a position to run a radio station as a general manager was unheard of, unthinkable. It was beyond anything at the time people could do. And yet, everybody in radio in Buffalo in that period knew that WNIA had a general manager, and that she was Mary Lounsbury. Jimmy.
You know, Dr. Jim, at 29 years old, Mary Lounsbury had her hands full, because here she had this bunch of young fellas, and notice that's the word, young fellas, who were behind the microphone, and she had her hands full. Dr. Jim put together a Facebook page about 2 months ago in which we tried to recruit some of the people who had worked there to tell us a little bit about their history. Here's an interesting concept. Stephanie Shapiro, she was hired by Mr. Brown and Mary for their very first traffic director in 1956, September of 1956. These are her words. Looking back, I don't know how she kept the mostly teenage staff in line without a chair, whip, and pistol, but she did. She blazed professional trails as a woman station manager, even without the title. Stephanie also said, what I remember most about Mary is that as efficient as she was, she also had a heart. I have to tell you a personal note. Unbeknownst to me, once a month, I was hired as a teenager. I was still in high school when Mary hired me. Unbeknownst to me, about once a month, she would call my mother, and she would say, here are the things that Jim could work on. Here's how he's coming. Here are the things that I think is in his future, and if you have some time, work with him on these items. And not only that, but one day, I was in the radio station, and she said, Jim, you really need to have cooler hair. She said, come into the bathroom over here, look in this mirror, here's a comb, I want you to take a little water, put it on your hair, and do a little of this and sweep it back like this. And she said, you follow my directions and you're gonna look just like Freddie Boom Boom Cannon. And you know what? 60 years later, I think I do. Bottom line was she was a tough businesswoman, but she was also very fair. She had a heart. What was your connection, James?
Well, it wasn't hair. I mean, that's for sure. I was hired in '67 to handle that Sunday afternoon shift that Jim took a few years before. And my name, too, was Mac McGuire at that point. I worked with Mary from 1967 to 1970, and then after accepting a position at Buffalo State, came back to Buffalo and worked with her again from 1977 out to about 1982, which point I had gone off to St. John Fisher to do some other things. But you know, Mary is quite a lady, and my story has to do with something a little different. I was looking at graduate schools at Ohio, and I wound up looking at Ohio State, and I needed a letter of recommendation from someone who was not related to academics, a professional reference, and I asked Mary to write that. Years later, my doctoral advisor told me that that letter strongly influenced the admissions committee to the point where not only was I admitted, but I was granted a full tuition scholarship. And that was a teaching assistantship that lasted the 4 years. Mary changed my life. I was a college prof for 45 years, and that experience I trace back part to Mary Lansbury. But it wasn't just me. I mean, there were people whose lives were changed and touched by her goodness. Many people began their careers. People like Bill Deasing, J.R. Reed, Jim Fagan, Don Yerke, Jack Horoho, and later Mike Stein, Dennis Majewicz, Al Parker, John Park, Frankie Nestro. So many people, so many folks who were touched by this loving and kind woman.
Here's where our story takes a little twist. You will note that every one of the names that Jim read was a male. Let's face it, 1956, radio was a boys' club. In fact, until the middle 70s, we had very few females on the air, much less a female general manager. There's no question about that. This was, in fact, a boys' business. But, you know, even though we've made giant strides, or some strides, in moving women forward in this business, Mary was the person who really was an against all odds general manager. Understand that she really, not only in a day when there was not a glass ceiling to break, she took the job and became the general manager. Even though she was named the office manager, she was very much the general manager. In every word, she just grabbed the title. And there wasn't a one of us that didn't realize that Mary was, in fact, the boss. Needless to say, we are very, very happy that Mary honed our skills. Some of us have made lifelong careers out of this fabulous business. The reality is that she made us fall in love with the business. she taught us that there was a difference between a job and a career. For me, Mary Lounsbury truly was the Pied Piper. So I know that some of us have taken different roads in this universe, the parallel universe for Jim, where he went on to teach in higher education. I went on in lower education as a general manager.
We really are fortunate to have been touched by Mary. I want to share with you before we close one very quick comment. On that Facebook request, Dennis Mazurowitz, one of my close friends who trained me back in '67, wrote this: "I will forever remember Mary as someone who saw something in me and in all of us, and she nurtured it. Even though I found my career path on the other side of the microphone and camera, I will always be grateful to Mary for that opportunity. In a firm but fair way, Mary guided us in the right direction. It was a special time, and she was a special lady. She had to work twice as hard and be twice as good to make it in a male-dominated industry. So she's deserving of all the accolades we can give her. Dennis said, and we concur, I'm proud to be one of Mary's boys."
Absolutely. As we mentioned, Mary passed away way too young at 66 years of age in 1994. She was, to me and to Jim and to many of you, the living legacy of what great leadership should be. Selfless service to broadcasting. She was a pioneer for women in management, not only here in Buffalo, but across the nation. So for those of us who worked with her, we will never forget Mary's tireless commitment to her staff, to her family, and most of all, to her community. And many of us will always consider us one of Mary's boys.
And so it's with great pride and great respect that we accept this posthumous award from the Buffalo Broadcasters Association for Mary Lounsbury. Thank you.
What a wonderful speech. Thank you. What a great history lesson. Really.
Well done.
Wow. That was an incredible history lesson.
It really was. My radio name was Dan Nevereth when I did the morning.
Really?
I did the mornings. Yep.
Mine was-
Sandy Beach in the afternoon.
Now, mine was Sandy Beach's babe. I don't know. Where are you, Sandy? What did you call me? Do we have enough time for all the words you called me? Just kidding. It's a great night for radio. Woo! Woo! All right, where are we going?
At this time, we're going to take a brief pause from our induction ceremony. Every year, we remember the broadcasters who made an everlasting impact on our industry and our lives. We want to take a moment and pay tribute to those who have left us over the past year.
You, the viewers, were the key element in whatever success I've achieved. We connected on and off the air, you and me. I can never thank you enough. You made all of my dreams come true.
Irv. Ooh, that's a tough one to follow. The Buffalo Broadcasters Association, the Buffalo Music Hall of Fame, and the Greater Buffalo Sports Hall of Fame created an organization called the Buffalo Experience. And its goal is to build an interactive facility highlighting the Hall of Fame inductees and memorabilia of each organization. So here's an update on their progress, produced by BBA board member Terry Fisher.
What makes a city unique? Is it the architecture? Is it the geography? Is it the people who live there? The food they eat, the music they listen to, the sports teams they cheer for? What are the essential elements that define a city? Any city? What are the essential elements of Buffalo?
Buffalo started out as a trading post and a port, became a canal town, then a rail town. Today, it's a lake town, it's a river town, it's a border town. It's a blue-collar town and a white-collar town and a no-collar town. It's big, it's small, it's old, it's new. It's been up and it's been down, and it's had more than its share of triumph and tragedy.
When people think of Buffalo, they think of... But what they should be thinking about is Degas, Van Gogh, and Picasso. Beethoven, James and Goo Goo Dolls. Wright, Richardson and Maury. Brown, Clifton and Coles. Twain, Arlen and Gurney. Westinghouse, Tesla and Hollerith. Merchant, Marchand and Mallock. UB, Canisius and Buff State. Kemp, Kelly and Kane. Bellissimo, Southwick and Ball. Shays, Kleinhans and Canalside. Bethune, Chisholm and Cornell. Fillmore, Cleveland and Roosevelt. Smith, Russert and Blitzer. Carrier, O'Shea and Great Batch. Fate has decreed that Buffalo should rise again. Investment in Buffalo has boomed in recent years, not only in structures and edifices, but in human capital, education, and innovation.
The Buffalo Experience is a significant project that, when completed, will offer young and old, the homegrown and the transplanted, maestros and the tone deaf, fans both dedicated and fair weather, local residents and visitors from around the world, a unique, fun, and educational experience that they won't forget.
And an experience that will change and grow and welcome visitors back again and again as the story of Buffalo and Western New York changes in ways we haven't even imagined.
Nice.
Nice, nice. Tonight, we also want to celebrate those who will help shape the future of Buffalo broadcasting for years to come. Please welcome to the stage board member Carl Lamb. He is going to share with us some of the things the organization is doing to encourage and support young broadcasters.
It is a pleasure to be here with you this evening as we honor the mentees that have participated in the Buffalo Broadcasters Association's Student Mentoring Program. My name is Carl Lamb. I'm the social media manager and the co-chair of the Educational Outreach Committee. I'm joined tonight by my co-chair, Anne-Marie Franzek, who is in the back there. This is the third year of the program, and we're so delighted to have such great connections in the Western New York broadcasting community and across the country, as our mentors have really been all across the country, from California all the way to Massachusetts. So I want to thank the 23 mentors who volunteered their time this year to work with 3 amazing students. We're honored to have one mentee here with us this evening, and her name is Monica Manny. Would you please stand? Monica is a senior at Fredonia, majoring in journalism, and she spent the summer interning at Spectrum News Buffalo. And we want to congratulate you on completing the mentorship program. So congratulations again. And we have 2 mentees who could not be here this evening, and it is because they're already hard at work in the field. Cordell Cumming, a graduate of the college at Brockport, is now working at ESPN as a production assistant, and he started this past Monday, so he moved out and couldn't be here with us this evening. And our final mentee, Allison Stabell, is a graduate of the University at Buffalo, and she is working at Spectrum News as a photographer on a full-time basis, so we want to congratulate them as well. We will be continuing this program into 2019, and we'll have a new set of mentees to work with, and we graciously appreciate the continued support from everyone in this room. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. My son played viola. Carl played in the orchestra with him. That's how many years ago.
Cool.
Yep,
That's you.
that's you.
Oh, is it? Huh. No, that's you.
That's me.
Somebody stole my script.
Yeah, I
Who
know.
walked
You know,
away with
you
it?
all think this is easy. This
Yeah.
is not,
We
especially
don't
for
have-
those of us who are able to do 5 or 6 takes. You know, you guys who do stand-ups, you know what I'm talking about, right? If you saw my stand-ups, the reel would be hysterical.
Oh, wait, this is really difficult. Let's give them a round of applause. These dedicated students are the future of our industry. Go. Let's support them.
We'd also like to thank the mentors that took time out of their schedules to work with the mentees. So many professionals from both the television and radio industries volunteered their time to meet with our mentees and be a guiding force for them as they begin their own broadcasting careers. Thank you again.
And, you know, just a note, and I would be remiss if I didn't say this. Today's kind of a big news day, and I think that for those of us that are in news or infotainment, radio, TV, it's really up to us to be mentors. I mean, the industry is changing. We see it every day. And if we don't take this seriously and help young people grow and become and excel at what we hope is good journalism and a lot of fun and infotainment, we won't have these Hall of Fame inductions. So just a thought.
That is true. And a lot of my mentees are here tonight. A lot of the cameramen I worked with back in the day, including Mike Mombre, senior and junior over there.
Oh, very nice.
I always tell these guys that I learned more from them than anyone else in this business. So we need to be the Mike Mombres now.
Absolutely. So let's move ahead. The program, because we only have 2 awards left. The first is our Behind the Scenes Award. There are many who work in broadcasting who we call the unsung heroes. They are the people who make the station run smoothly and with distinction, both on and off the air.
Tonight's inductee is known for doing just that. Tom Atkins' engineering work is unmatched. He's worked tirelessly over the decades to ensure the success of each and every station he's touched, and there have been many. Thanks to board member Pat Feldball for showing us some of Tom's career highlights.
Tom Atkins, WKBW.
Tom Atkins has been an integral part of the Western New York broadcasting community for decades, having successfully served as chief engineer of WYSL, AM and FM, WBLK, WKBW, WKSE, WGR, 3WS, WBEN, and WTSS. He's also been heard as an air personality at WYSL, WGR, and WKBW. Radio is in Tom Atkins' DNA as early as high school. As a member of the Amherst High School Radio Club, his interest and expertise in electronics led him to build a low-power AM student-run radio station that gave rise to his on-air and engineering career. He began his professional radio career in the early 70s at WUSJ Lockport. Tom was heard in Buffalo at WYSL AM and FM, and during the blizzard of '77, Tom was one of only 4 staff members able to get to the stations and helped keep them on the air in the face of one of the most challenging events of nature in Western New York. His ability to find a solution to just about any technical challenge earned him the nickname Dr. Tom. He became the station's chief engineer and retained his successful afternoon drive air shift on WYSL AM.
3:44 with Dr. Tom Atkins, and just a beautiful day outside, 76 degrees, sort of warm, which probably means your air conditioner is running, right? And to many of you, you probably really don't know how an air conditioner works. Now, here is how an air conditioner works. Your unit pumps cold air into the house. Now, the cold air displaces the hot air, which rises and goes through the roof. Running your air conditioner also does the same thing to your electric bill.
Call WYSL.
Just about 3:46.5 at 14 WYSL.
WKBW-TV offered an engineering opportunity in 1988, but Radio DNA led Tom back to KB Radio and WKSE 3 years later, again as chief engineer. In 1995, one of the largest broadcast consolidations in the Buffalo market took place when Key Market Communications bought WBEN AM and WMJQ FM, as well as WWKB and WKSE, with options to buy WGR and 3WS. Key Market named Atkins chief engineer of its Buffalo radio properties. Barry Drake, the former Key Market COO, formed Backyard Broadcasting, and in 2002 brought Tom on as Corporate Director of Engineering, a position he held through 2014 when the company was sold.
Tom Atkins. Tom Atkins is an extraordinary engineer. He's an extraordinary air personality, and I think that's what makes him such a good engineer, because he's been on the air. He knows what it's like for people who are on the air, whether they're news people or disc jockeys or production people, what they need to do their job to the best of their ability. So he helps facilitate that. He has been instrumental in so many radio stations. When you think about his experience in Buffalo from WYSL and WPHD, and even before that, WUSJ and WLVL is where he started. And when I worked with him at WGR, News Radio 55, from 1995 through 2000, he was just the epitome of an engineer who made things work. We were shoehorned into the Delaware Avenue studios through a sale, and we literally moved the radio station overnight from Franklin Street to Delaware Avenue without missing a beat. And I know that's something that Tom is very and rightfully proud of, because it was a huge undertaking, and he and his staff accomplished that undertaking with nary a hitch, and it was a difficult task at that. Tom has a very pronounced ability to balance his professional responsibilities with his personal and family responsibilities. And that's especially important when you consider how much time an engineer has to put into a radio station, the proper functioning of a radio station. He's always been able to balance that and serve both his family and the needs of the radio station. I'm extremely proud to have known Tom for many years, to call him a personal friend and a professional colleague. Congratulations, Tom, from me and all those that you have worked with over the years on a much-deserved induction to the Buffalo Broadcasters Hall of Fame.
Tonight, as recipient of the Hall of Fame's Behind the Scenes Award, we're proud to induct Tom Atkins into the Buffalo Broadcasters Hall of Fame class of 2018.
Wow, what a build-up. I have never had a build-up like that before, Jim. Thank you. Thank you very much. One thing I do want to set straight, though, I noticed Tom Lang Meyer's career included the traffic reporting and the landing of the aircraft in Delaware Park. But the untold story is that though Tom's aircraft landed, didn't cause any damage, no one was hurt, when Channel 7 went there, tire ruts throughout the whole golf course. Remember that? Yeah, of course, yeah. And if you don't believe me, the person that was operating the live truck is in this building. I'm not going to mention his name. So, anyway, the Behind the Scenes Award is something very dear to me because, well, I was a founding member of the Buffalo Broadcast Pioneers, which morphed into the Buffalo Broadcasters Association. And being part of the early days, I really did want to get people behind the scenes. There were a lot of people that did so many things tirelessly, hours and hours. And it's a pleasure and a thrill to know that this award is now going to be part of the Buffalo Broadcasters Association. So thank you for that. Jim built me up a lot. Didn't do it with just myself. Had a lot of help. And I'm going to read off a bunch of names. I'm probably going to forget somebody, but Dan Grzinski, Pete Hausman, John Rosso. Yeah, I hired John because I felt sorry for him at Buff State. And Al Laffler, Tom Strike, Sam D'Angelo, John Carroll, Joe Puma, Peter Grosskopf, Matt Monin, Tom Carvelis, Dennis Kavanaugh, Bill Nichols, Bob Watkins, Ben Van Patten. I mean, these guys really helped a lot, and we did a lot of great engineering in the area. And it was a thrill to be part of Buffalo. Of course, I'm residing in Detroit now and working for Saga Communications, but I was really proud to be part of the Buffalo broadcasting landscape. So thank you so much. I want to thank the board. I want to thank the Buffalo Broadcasters Association for giving me this. I definitely need to thank my lovely wife, Diana, my daughter, Holly, who is here. My daughter, Julia, is away at college getting her PhD, and she can't be here, but I really need to thank the family because, as Jim mentioned in the recording, there were a lot of hours spent, and at times that could ruin your home life. So thank you, and thank you again. I'm really thrilled. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Well, 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 we've reached that magical moment.
Here we are.
Oh, hey, you know, we're about to induct somebody who probably doesn't need an introduction. Just, can I share a story?
Or an induction, for that
Or
matter.
an induction.
Oh!
So tonight's been a lot about radio, a woman, and then this guy. So about 20-some years ago, I made my first foray out to Los Angeles, and I took up residence in a place called The Shores, which is a high-rise on the edge of Venice Beach and Santa Monica. Really a sexy place to live, I gotta tell you, and it was rent controlled, which is even better. Anyway, I mentioned I was from Buffalo, and some people in the building said, oh, there's this guy that lives next door in a place called the Sea Colony. And do you know his name is John Beard? And I went, oh, I know John Beard, which is funny because I ran into him tonight and he goes, hello, I'm John Beard. I went, I know. Anyway, but what's funny is then they shared this story. They said that he's often seen in a restaurant down the street, and the restaurant is called Chez J. John, where are you? Oh, okay,
I think you went to
great.
the men's room.
You do remember Chez J. Anyway, it's a very, very old restaurant. And he was often seen there. And what's interesting is that particular restaurant is where JFK used to go and bring Marilyn Monroe. And there was a little room in the back, and it had like this drape across it. And that's where he would go and have dinner. And I swear, Kevin, that they said he dined there many, many times, but we'll find out. Anyway, shall we get going?
Oh, what a shame he missed that story.
He did? Where is
We'll
he?
watch it on the replay.
Oh, my God.
He's of a certain age, so I'm sure he had to go to the
I
bathroom.
know, probably. I am. Where
I'm
is
thinking
he?
the same thing too. I've been standing here for over 2 hours.
No. I've got ears on you, and I've
I'm
been
only
like
good
this.
for 45 minutes.
Okay.
Our
Anyway.
final award of the night is our Hall of Fame television inductee. This person is a familiar face to Western New York, Hollywood, and beyond. John Beard is a trustworthy face both behind the anchor desk and the studio camera.
And in all sincerity, a pro in all aspects of television. He combines his love of reporting, broadcasting, and acting to excel in every role. A true journalist at heart, he's literally been on the front line of stories that have had a resounding impact. He is a board member and a fellow Hall of Famer. Rich Newberg is about to tell us more about John Beard's career.
Good morning, everybody. I'm John Beard.
John joined the Navy after 2 years of college. He said there were no pictures of him in uniform, but we found one in his boot camp yearbook. After 4 years in the Navy as a medic and 4 years at stations in the Carolinas, Buffalo called in 1977. You remember 1977.
The federal official coordinating the snow relief effort in western New York said this afternoon that no decision has been made on whether the region will be declared a major disaster area.
The reporting at Channel 4 included stories like the .22 caliber killer, the Love Canal, the always interesting Jimmy Griffin interviews, and the West Valley nuclear site.
Good evening, everybody. I'm John Beard in West Valley, where news was made again today because the Department of Energy recommended that the old NFS plant here be used for the storage of more spent nuclear fuel.
Much of John's first run in Buffalo involved serious stories. But if you know John, you know that wasn't always the case. John was number 3 in the Buffalo ratings in 1981. Why would 2 stations in Los Angeles get into a bidding war to hire him? Who knows, but they did. and John left for KNBC in Los Angeles.
This is NBC News Digest. Here is John Beard.
In October of 1981, a terror bombing killed 220 Marines in their barracks in Beirut, Lebanon. John had spent 4 years with the Marines as a Navy medic and visited the families of Marines from Southern California, videoed their Christmas greetings, and flew to Beirut to play them for the Marines stationed there.
Sí, mijo, I couldn't get everybody together, but I got as many as I could together so they could say hi to you. Y feliz Navidad, mijo.
When John announced he was going to Beirut, he got a call from a local family who had adopted a baby but couldn't get him out because the airport was closed and Beirut was under a curfew. They asked John to bring their baby boy home with him. He did, and returned just before Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Oh, thank you. Oh.
John called the series of reports A Few Good Men and One Small One. It won him his first Emmy. 11 more would follow. And so did the ratings. In local newspaper polls, John was voted most popular anchor every year but one. John thinks that one year must have been some kind of sampling error. Los Angeles was much safer than Beirut, but it didn't feel that way in August of 1987 when a man with a gun took over a live afternoon newscast at KNBC. The gunman pointed a gun at consumer reporter David Horowitz sitting next to John and gave him a message to read on the air. John looked at the gun to see if it was real, and it looked like the .45 caliber weapon he was trained with during his time with the Marines. Station management took the station off the air, but when the "Please stand by" message came up on studio monitors, the gunman said, "I want this on the air." David continued to read the gunman's message, and the man placed the gun on the desk, and John grabbed it. It was not a real gun, and John held it up for police to see as they rushed into the studio so they wouldn't shoot the man who turned out to be mentally ill.
LA's #1 choice for news. Fox 11 10 o'clock news.
Good evening, everybody. I'm John Beard.
In 1993, John left KNBC for KTTV, the Fox affiliate in Los Angeles, and took their #2 rated newscast to #1 for the first time in station history. In addition to anchoring the 10 p.m. newscast, John anchored gavel-to-gavel coverage of the O.J. Simpson trial and hosted half-hour specials. There was plenty of breaking news, including, of course, earthquakes.
We just had a little aftershock right on schedule
I think
here.
that's what we were feeling. It was.
I know
it was
darn
not
well
too-
that's what I was feeling. I can't speak for everybody, but that was definitely what I
That
felt.
was it.
Those conditions are expected to continue into Thursday, so be very careful if you're heading out to the beach.
Yeah, riptides too.
Yeah, big riptides. Of course, you should swim parallel to the shore if you ever get caught in a riptide. You've been caught in one before, haven't you?
I have.
And there's...
That's how I got to L.A.
Fox Television wanted to create a talk show. They cast John with 3 women in a show called That's Life. The viewers seemed to like it, but TV station general managers didn't. And John's talk show career lasted 13 weeks.
I had a very severe panic attack. They had to take me into the cockpit.
Really?
I had to talk to the pilots and everything because I had just had this horrible
That would have been the last place I'd
foreboding.
have taken you.
I mean, but I wanted to go in there. I wanted to know.
In 2003, John got another interesting call from the producer of a sitcom being planned for the Fox network. They were looking for someone to play an anchorman who was also a bit of a smartass. John turned it down at first, but ultimately said yes, and has been on all 5 seasons of Arrested Development.
Did you hear that, everyone? Michael Bluth is threatening me!
I gotta get out of here. Part of the story. Can't be a part of the story. Can't be a part of the story. Case. Pretty good lemonade, huh?
It is. Is there alcohol in here? John Beard.
Please, have a seat.
Okay.
Why are you here?
I'm here to see my little girl. I wanted to show her daddy's thing. What are you doing here?
I'm doing a local interest piece.
John!
Hi.
David,
Hi.
how are you? Nice to see you.
Did you get to work with John?
You.
No, we didn't get a
No,
chance.
I've never worked with
I
you
got a couple days
in
with
the
John.
flesh.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been, watching you on TV. I'm starstruck.
This is John Beard from Buffalo.
Buffalo.
What's so funny?
Very, very cool.
How you doing?
I'm doing
It's
great.
good to see you.
This is pretty cool.
Now, what about
putting a show together for broadcast television versus having the freedom of having much looser production content restrictions.
I just love hearing your voice. I didn't hear a word you just said. You know, growing up listening to you and then listening to you on the show, it's a symphony.
8 years ago, John returned to Buffalo to anchor mornings on Channel 2. Other than the hours, nothing had changed.
I totally read your line there, didn't I? I don't know if you
That
noticed.
never happens.
I don't know if you noticed.
It happens all the time.
Meantime, the weather sucks.
I can't believe you said that.
Should we go to Kevin O'Neill? Nice! Wow, you guys are hired.
Due to time constraints, that's all the John story for now. The rest is in his book, What's the Point of Being Good Looking If You're Not on TV? Available soon on Amazon. The Buffalo Broadcasters Association is proud to induct John Beard into the 2018 class of the Hall of Fame.
Woo! Thank you, Mark Thompson.
Congratulations.
So do you know Shay J?
You know, I after looking at the people that went in before me tonight, the caliber of talent there and the accomplishments, it makes me want to paraphrase a line from Arrested Development. There's been a terrible mistake. This is going to be quick. I just want to do a couple of things. I want to let you know how much I appreciate two things. One is this profession of broadcasting, and the other is this city of Buffalo. Let's talk about the profession first. You may not know, I was in radio 7 years before I went into television. And all you guys in radio know, the day you got your first class ticket was one of the happiest days of your life. Remember that? And radio was, it was good for me, but during my career, there was some drama in radio and television. Some of it was because of my personality, which got me jobs and cost me some jobs, and my inability not to actually say what I thought. I'll give you a couple of examples. My second radio station was in Lumberton, North Carolina, WTSB, and I would sign on every weekend, every Saturday. So I signed on one Saturday about 6 a.m., whatever sunrise was, and the phone rang about half an hour later. It's the boss. And he says, "You know, you're off the air." I said, "No, I didn't know that." He said, "Nobody called?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, that's not good, is it?" And I realized later I should have said, well, I would have solved the problem, but I've been answering the damn phone all morning, but a little late on that one. Okay, my next job in radio was when I was with Marines. I was stationed in Beaufort, South Carolina, near Parris Island. So the station was WSIB. So one night I go on there and I say, "You're listening to the Carolina Rock, WSIB. That stands for We're Stuck in Beaufort." Phone rings. It's the boss. He says, "Did you just say we're stuck in Beaufort?" I said, "I did, but it was a joke." And he said, "Do I sound like I'm laughing?" And I said, "I've never heard you laugh." And he hung up. The most intense moment you saw, that to KNBC when the guy with the gun came in. And that I had just come off 2 weeks vacation. You may have noticed I was pretty dark. And this guy comes in, and we were in the middle of a strike. So the cameras were being run by sales guys because the camera guys were on strike. Okay? So this guy walks up and stands behind David Horowitz. So I thought, oh, that's like some guy doesn't know. He's filling in. He doesn't know where to go, where not to go. Then I see the gun, and I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. That's not right. And then he gives David this legal pad to read, and David looks at him and starts reading, and I'm looking at the gun and everything, and I remember thinking, my God, this can't. I'm looking for other explanations because there's not a guy in the gun. There's not a guy with a gun. That's impossible. And my heart, I remember thinking, I had so much adrenaline, I had like 5 tracks going in my head. One track is, it doesn't matter if he shoots us because I'm going to die of a heart attack any second anyway. And then I had so much adrenaline, I started thinking really on several tracks. I'm thinking, okay, what if that's not a real gun? If it's not a real gun, I'll just punch this guy and I'll be a hero. But if it is a real guy, David's dead. Okay, hero, David dead. Well, it looked real to me, and the guy's hand was inside the trigger guard, and his hand was shaking. So I thought, you better do something here, because if at the end, if he says, I have to kill you all, then you got to, So I started looking to see what the last line was, and I couldn't read it. David was blocking it. So then, you may have noticed it was a low casual coffee table set to talk, 4 p.m., a casual show. Had my legs crossed, had my IFB plugged in here. So I turned my chair to this guy, unplugged the IFB and dropped it down, put my weight on my balls of my feet, because the door is behind him. And I thought if somebody comes in, the cops come in, then I can jump him, And I remember thinking, you're so clumsy, you'd probably fall right at his feet and, whole thing over right now. So obviously it ended peacefully. I went back and called my family and said, you're going to see this. It's fine. Don't worry. It wasn't real. So I go back to my office, and a woman comes in the station at KMBC and sticks her head and says, I'm the station psychologist. I didn't know we had a station psychologist. She said, are you okay? I said, no. I just had 2 weeks vacation. I was all relaxed. Now I'm tense. I need 2 more weeks. She said, you're fine. You're just fine. I did a radio interview with somebody in town after that, and the interviewer was a young girl. I mean, it wasn't her. She really was young. And she said, now, did you know that wasn't a real gun? And I said, if I'd known it was not a real gun, I'd have gone to lunch. No. Okay, so before we get to the part about Buffalo, I want to acknowledge the people at my table. My brother, Steve Beard, is here. My sister, Kathy Pierce. Some of my oldest friends are there. And when I say oldest, I mean long-term. Kevin and Carolyn O'Connell, Ed and Debbie Kilgore, Mark Thompson, who flew in from LA. Mark was the voice on the piece, by the way. Susan Banks is here, Barbara Bickerton, Marie Rice, all of whom I knew from my first tour here in Buffalo and became some of my longtime friends. The other table, Channel 2, that's my new set of friends from when I was here last time, not too long ago. And I remember, I mentioned the calls from the GMs. Well, there's one day I had to call the GM. I had to call Jim Tollner one day at Channel 2, and I said, I had to explain I wouldn't be into work for a few days. And I also had to tell him I was calling from a place where you only get one phone call. That's in the book. I don't want to get into that. It was a mix-up. It was just a mix-up. So anyway, back 23 years in LA, back to Buffalo, worked at Channel 2, a whole different time spot, never worked mornings before. I was sleep deprived the whole time. I told Jim kept saying, are you going to stick around for a while? I said, Jim, I hate this job every day when I get up. But when I get here, I love it. And he said, we can't separate those two things. And I said, yeah, I know. And so I was planning on being here 2 years. It ended up being 8. And it might have been longer, except for I had a you people know that work with me at Channel 2, I have a fairly recent medical condition. It's a work allergy. And so I thought it was time to call it a day in January. So to wrap this thing up, I just want to let you know that, first of all, this city, I didn't want to come to Buffalo. In 1977, I was working in Winston-Salem TV station. We had a guy who was a director, Bill Newbach, who's from Buffalo. He would come in, this is during the blizzard, he would come in every day, go to the weather wire, and come out and say, it's wind chills minus 25. People are walking out to the second story onto the snow. I'm so glad I'm not still there. I'm so glad. And I heard that all winter. Then I got a call from Ray Hassan, who was news director, and he said, hey, how'd you like to come up to Buffalo? We talked to you about doing 11 o'clock news. I said, no, I don't think I'd like that at all. He said, why not? I said, well, it doesn't seem like a good fit. And he said, well, let us fly you up here and see what you think. And I said, I just don't. And finally, he talked me into it. So I go up. Ray and his wife take me out, and I don't remember the name of the restaurant. It was a high-end restaurant. And it was Ray and his wife, who were older. I was just a kid. And everybody in there was old. And that's all I saw. And the snow was still piled up everywhere. It was dirty snow by then. And I'm thinking, this is the coldest, most depressing, oldest town I've ever seen. So I go back to Winston-Salem. Ray calls me, and he says, hey, look, okay, we want to hire you. I said, Ray, I don't, it's not going to work. And he said, well, here's what we would pay you. I said, I'm flattered. That's a lot more than I'm making, a lot more. But I just don't, it doesn't feel right. He said, look, come back up one more time, and you'll meet the guy who's going to be your producer, a young guy like you. I said, Ray, I'm wasting your time. I came back. He introduced me to Jim Pephart, one of the greatest guys, greatest producers, just an incredible guy, drinking buddy. So Jim, the night there, I didn't go out with Ray and his wife. Jim took me to the 747. And I thought, I love this town. And that was it. I fell in love. The first time I stayed in love with it, I came back 23 years in LA. I came back all the time to visit my friends. And then I came back, still loved it even more. The city had changed, and it was better. The people were still the same warm, multicultural, friendly people I'd always known. So I'm doubly honored to get this award on the same night as those people who went in before me, who were immensely talented, the people that went on before all of us, and we all know that they are legends, and to get it in this great city. So to get this award on this night, in this place, I am humbled and I am honored. Thank you very much.
There you go, buddy. Woo-hoo! Take your applause.
Thank you. You're going to go that way?
I think that way.
Oh, I love that guy. My ringtone is actually Curb Your Enthusiasm theme song.
No, it's not.
I swear to God.
Curb
You want to
Your-
call me?
Or Arrested Development. That was
No,
great,
that was
Les.
pretty good.
That was really good. Okay, where are we? Oh, here we go. We are very lucky to have had such an extensive broadcasting history in Buffalo, no doubt, and so lucky to have such an amazing group of inductees this year. We would like to ask all of our inductees to stand where they are at their tables, and would everyone please join Les and I one last time in giving them a huge round of applause for all their accomplishments, because this night is all about them. Woo! Woo!
And as we wrap up this evening, one more time, I'd like to thank our sponsors. Russell Salvatore. Did we ever find Russell? Is he here tonight? Oh, okay. Russell's Steaks, Chops, and More.
The Chicago Blackhawks, Joe from Indigo, who provided this video wall.
Ilio DePaulo's All Seasons Rental.
Kevin Lavullo from Spiel the Wine.
Platters Chocolates.
And all of our friends here at WNED.
Woo! And don't forget, we love getting together to induct a new class into our Hall of Fame, but we also want to keep in touch throughout the year. Our next event is our holiday luncheon, which is in December, and you can buy tickets right now online.
I wish we had, there we go. Boy, it's tough to share a script and have no teleprompter. As you know,
who stole that script anyway?
Yeah, I don't know. Lang Meyer, I'm sure. Tonight's award ceremony was part of a taped broadcast Oh, thank God they can edit out the bad parts. So you can relive the magic all over again. Please make sure you watch WNYO Saturday, November 24th at 7 p.m. We will also show the program a second time on December 15th at 10 p.m. And as always, you can check our Facebook page to watch the live feed of tonight's show. You can also order a copy of tonight's show or of other ceremonies from over the years. The Hall of Fame program is available as a special collectible DVD package. You can learn more about how to order on our website, buffalobroadcasters.com.
It has been a pleasure
It has.
working with you. I've been a huge fan of Susan since way back in the day.
Me too.
Of PM Magazine.
Oh, wow.
In fact, those of you who are too young to know, PM Magazine was the precursor to all news magazine shows except for 60 Minutes. In fact, shows like Inside Edition took over those time slots when PM Magazine was finally off the air. But I watched you from Fort Erie, Ontario, where I grew up, where I went to college, where I went to high school, and Toronto, where I went to college. And it's been a pleasure working with you. We've spent a lot of time on the phone.
Yes, we have. And you know,
Not a lot of time rehearsing, but a lot of time on the phone.
Clearly. But
Yeah.
the fun part is that now I'm behind the scenes more or less, and it's really great to see how your career has skyrocketed. And you know, you're always here, and congratulations. I think Les does an amazing job.
Well, thank you. I love my city. You know, I love my
love
Buffalo.
my city too.
One last announcement. Every year we take a photo of our newest inductees along with the current Hall of Fame members. So in just a few minutes, I'm going to ask everyone who was inducted tonight or is a member of the Hall of Fame to come up on the stage. We're going to take one huge group shot. All right?
All right, before we go, though, I've been asked to let somebody know I have your car keys.
Oh.
I can't describe them other than help
It's
me.
a GM of some sort.
Yep.
Who's
Check
driving
your
a
bags.
GM?
What's that little thing saying?
This says night size S-Biner.
Anybody missing keys? Tommy Shannon? Where's Tommy Shannon? All right. We'll have him up here. If you realize you're missing them, we've got him here, okay?
Okay.
Thanks, everybody. It's been a lot of fun.
Woo!